Welcome back to Siam Smoke Sessions. This is episode Lucky 13. We've
Okay.
we didn't screw up this week. Sita actually got someone on the schedule that we've been meaning to get on for like months since we first kicked this thing off. So we're excited to introduce him in a moment. But Sita, I've got a question for you first.
The dreaded question time.
I think you can get this one. This is a layup. This will be like a soft pitch here. Name one dish that's unique, like a food dish that's unique to northern Thailand.
Oh, see, it's a debated dish because you told me about it, but cow soy would be one, wouldn't it?
Cow soy would be one. The beloved cow soy.
The Farang's first dish when they enter Thailand in Chiang Mai.
Yes, it's the first thing everyone must eat, but it better not be the last. We'll talk about more about Chiang Mai food in another episode, maybe next week's riff. But for now, Sita, an easier question. What have you been smoking on, man?
At the moment, I have a strain called White Lime. I don't 100% know the genetics, but from terp profiling it, it's definitely related to some kind of haze or amnesia haze. It's got that peppery terpenes in it, but it's very nice and I like it. I know a lot of people do not like haze terps, especially in England, because it was like flooded into the market thanks to the beautiful place of Amsterdam. But I like haze terps, so people can suck my balls.
There we
so
go.
That leads me to my favorite question is, we have refresh. We have an amazing guest, someone who, some people asked me how long I spend in Thailand, or if I've met any of the guests that have gone to Thailand. And guess what, guys? Finally, I can say yes. I've met this man. We had a good coffee. We had some kind of talk. So I'd like to introduce. I think most people know who you are, but I'll introduce you anyway. So we have Mendel from
Mendel.
I said, that's the way he said it better.
Mendel from High Thailand.
Mendel. Yes,
Mendel
sir.
from High Times. Mendel, what are you smoking
High
on, my guy?
High
High
Thailand.
Thailand. Brain. For people
Someone
that don't
is nervous.
as well as for some people don't know, this is the earliest I've been up for a recording.
Oh, that's right.
Oh, man.
It's 7 a.m. in Old Blighty.
Wow. See, this is an honest wake and bake for you.
This is the truest wake and bake I've had on the show. So, but what are you smoking on, man?
I am smoking on Hawaiian Haze. It's the first time I've ever smoked this. It was sent to me by the guys at Blaze, and it's pretty nice. I like it. Very kind of spicy and mango-ish. But I'm always a big fan of the hazes. So that's kind of one of my go-tos.
My kind of guy. See, I love haze terps. I don't know why they get so much hate.
Yeah, I like them also. I didn't even realize they did get hate, but
I think
I'm out of touch with that.
It's probably just a British thing. It's me and my fellow Englishmen hating.
Are they? Bill, do you know anything about that? And do you know any haze hate from up in Chiang Mai, other than the pollution haze?
Yeah, there's that. I haven't heard specifically. I had some haze also recently, but I haven't heard any moaning about it. But if Sita's saying his fellow Englishmen are moaning about it, that wouldn't surprise me.
The main commonality I hear is that it makes people paranoid. Like it's I can kind of understand that. I mean it has the name Amnesia Haze for a reason, but I'm not about the hate. But let's move on from that. So let's talk about what you do, my guy. High Thailand. High Thailand, probably one of the most prominent. You go on Google, you go search Cannabis Thailand, you guys pop up straight away. So how did you guys come up with like wanting to do High Thailand?
I think it was circumstance. The three of us were the three partners. There's me, Tom, and Nick. Tom and Nick are two German gentleman. I myself am American from Brooklyn. We all had lived in Thailand for a while, and upon legalization, as you know, June 9th of last year, we found ourselves just kind of thrown together. Tom and Nick knew each other already and were, I guess, smoking together. I was off in a different world for, I guess, the 2 years prior to legalization, trying to find out more about what would happen with legalization for medicinal purposes. And I was trying to get into that game. I was trying to figure out things, and I met some farmers, some growers, and I met some guys on the medicinal side, and was trying to see if something could work. And then by the time they legalized, I kind of realized that there was no place for me in that game, and thought, okay, that's great. I'm just going to put my hands up and still just enjoy the fact that I can now walk around Thailand without having the fear of being arrested, and I'll smoke, and I'll just enjoy what they've got. But the folks who I had been in touch with prior to legalization still stayed in touch with me, and they started sending me samples of what they were growing. And I started just, smoking it, and then writing those guys just little, line messages telling them I really like this because it reminded me of this or that or the other thing. And they'd say, oh, can we publish what you wrote? And I'd say, sure. And then Tom and Nick kind of heard about that. And then they showed up at my apartment building here in Bangkok with a little bag of weed. A little bag of samples of weed. And they said, hey, if we give this to you, will you write us a few descriptions? Of course I will. But that's like the greatest exchange in the world, write a paragraph for each sample of cannabis. So I did. And then they asked if they could publish it on the website that they were at that time just setting up. They hadn't launched it yet. And I said, of course. And they did that. And then they said, if you want, you can go check out these new dispensaries and let us know what you think. You can write a couple lines about them and we'll publish that as well. So I did that. I think the first one I went to was 420, and I met Ty, one of the owners there, and just really clicked with him, but clicked with the dispensary itself, with the shop and the vibe that they had there, and just feeling. I think it was the first. I had been to dispensaries, a few of them prior to that, but it was the first time I kind of saw things from the owner's point of view. He also is a grower, and we talked about growing, and we talked about what it's like to set up the shop, what he was doing prior to legalization, and what his dreams are, what his goals are. And I just kind of took to that, and it was really fascinating. And it was a different angle than what I had come to for the previous couple of years. So I just kept doing that. I kept meeting as many people as possible, talking to as many people as possible in the cannabis scene here in Bangkok mainly, writing it up and publishing it. And slowly but quickly, because it's only been 8 months, I started getting attached to these guys and started getting, I'd say, strong opinions or strong principled directions for where I thought the market should go, where I thought I would like to see the culture move, and I started focusing on that. And my direction in what I was writing continued with the strain reviews and also with the dispensary reviews, but I tried to do some more commentary on what's happening from a vibe point of view, what's happening from a personal point of view, how are people interacting, how are different shops interacting, how are the growers, how are the growers not just reacting, but how are they being treated, how do they fit in, what's the relationship between everybody. And then, of course, start thinking about imports, local grown, the mixture of folks who are doing both, and just the complexity, the politics which is in the background. It fascinates me so much, and it keeps me so interested that I can't separate myself from it. So in a way, for me, High Thailand is it's a lifeline of sorts, which gives me an avenue into a different direction that I normally would go into in my normal day-to-day life. It's introduced me to so many people who I consider friends now, and hopefully they consider me friends as well. And it's given me a passion. It's given me a whole set of, I don't know if you would call them, I guess, principles and ethics and values and people and just a whole scene that I care very much about. And I really, I think it probably shows up with my feelings and my attitude towards cannabis in Thailand. Is probably evident from my writing, but it's something that I do feel very passionate about.
Most definitely. Like I got onto High Thailand quite early. I loved what you would. I love what you're doing because you kind of been a good uniter of a lot of different of the communities in Thailand. There is kind of subsects in the cannabis scene, but then you're interviewing all of them. You're everywhere. It was when I was in over there and we were going to meet. I was kind of amazed watching the stories on Instagram of oh, you're at this dispensary and then you're at this one. I'm like, this guy's getting around. This guy's covering a lot.
That's right.
And then,
sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you.
That's all right, man.
I just wanted to say one of the things about there's so many subsects and there's so many subcultures, but I've learned about. These are all new to me. That's part of what fascinates me is learning things that kind of break the cannabis culture and the cannabis world here out of I'd say the box. The box I have for it is not exactly a conservative box or something that you would that conforms to a normal sense of what I suppose a cannabis community should be, but what it actually is, it goes much farther, and it's much more diverse than what I initially thought it would be, maybe what I hoped it would be. But learning the different facets is really a big part of what I get and what I try to show.
Most definitely. I was going to say, you've given a lot of best way to put it is a lot of people when they talk about these topics, they like to do a line drawing, but they don't really color it in, where you guys have been doing, you're coloring in the topics, you know what I mean? Especially with the strain reviews and stuff, some people I get annoyed sometimes when I see people be like, oh, I just got this strain, it's fire, and that's all they'll say. But okay, but what kind of high was it? What's the terpenes like?
Yeah.
Having someone that was actually reviewing strains and giving actual detail and dispensary detail as well. It's nice to have someone that's not just, this place is hype, go here. It's, this place is really cool, go here for X, Y, and Z, So I've been using your website a lot. Anyone that kind of gives me some questions about where should I go first or what stuff kind of in Thailand regarding cannabis, I will send them either the episode we did on law or as well your article on the cannabis revolution. Was it cannabis revolution? I believe it was.
Well, I don't think I would use the word. I would try to stay away from the word revolution when I write. I think resurrection.
Yes, resurrection. That's the one. Yeah, that's the post. I send that to quite a few people.
I appreciate that. So I think that the strain reviews are extremely subjective, and I hope everybody takes them with a grain of salt, because we all come to cannabis from different places, and we'll all have different reactions, and we'll have different favorites. And I've definitely even had different reactions or different preferences and feelings about the same strain at different times when I've tried them. So I hope the strain reviews, I hope people do read them and take them for what they're worth, but they're just kind of a point in time, rather than, and I hope people go and make their own decisions. The dispensary reviews I hope they're a bit less subjective, and they don't necessarily reflect my own perception and experience, though I guess they have to when I write it. But what I try to do there is reflect the owner, more than anything, and how, especially if the dispensary is a reflection of that owner. And I find that my favorite dispensaries do reflect the personalities of the owner, especially the grower owners. And I think that's something I really hope that visitors to Thailand and that people living here, both I'd say like expats like me, but Thais who love cannabis, realize that there's such an important human connection to cannabis, and you can get that. I think if you're somebody who loves cannabis and has been with it for a while and has it influenced their life in a positive way, like me, when you walk into a shop and you walk into any type of cannabis business, you can almost immediately get that feeling like, okay, the guys who run this, the guys who own this, the guys who work here, they know it. They know it, they love it, and I want to be here. And it's, I think, you and I, Sita, you and I have some common favorite folks here in the industry.
Yeah.
But there's like, the first person I can think of is Fat Bud's Ricky, where
Ricky is. I love that man. I love Ricky. Ricky, if you're listening, I love you, my guy.
Yeah, Ricky's he's awesome. But you go into Fat Bud's, and I'm not trying to do this as a commercial, but more as an example. And there's a feeling there's you're not rushed. You have to kind of search on the top of the counter for the weed and look through it. Everybody's chill, laid back, and Ricky might be more interested in learning about you than selling you weed. And you have those conversations and you hang out, and sometimes you just don't want to leave. And that's they're not the only dispensary like that in Bangkok. There's quite a few others. But that's that feeling, and it's recreated again to reflect their owner's personality so many different times. Like PHC, which has more of like that hip hop vibe. But still, those guys love weed, and those guys know it. They know it intimately, and they, when you talk to them, they throw it out at you, and it's like this feeling of familiarity and comfort. Whereas if you go to a dispensary, or if you go to a shop where perhaps the investor, use investor more than an owner, the investor has figured out that this is a nice way to make money, and that it's attractive to a lot of people, maybe, but that they themselves have zero connection or no connection to cannabis, you feel that as well. Those guys, a lot of those guys will, when we talk about imports, things like that, a lot of those guys will just have that because of the economics makes sense. And these guys are focusing mostly on the economics of selling weed. But those guys, it just doesn't have that same feeling. It's not you're not part of the process. You're not part of, it's a transaction. And when you do that, it doesn't have, you're missing something. It's great. Yeah. You can go home and you can smoke some weed, and hopefully it'll be good quality, but the process is gone, and the personality is gone. And I think that exists here in Bangkok. There's such a huge, and in Thailand, Bill, you know much more about Chiang Mai. I've only been there once since legalization, but the personality of the market is incredibly important.
Yeah, definitely. I think there's a lot of people, especially me, that come from a cannabis scene where there is no real social interaction when you get your cannabis, you message some guy up, he drops off your weed, there's no talk. But what I loved about Thailand was the dispensary experience. And like, especially with Fat Buds, with Ricky, any of the Fat Buds stores, it's Ricky's place. Ricky's energy when you walk in. When you go to Suck and Weed, it's Beer's place. Starbuds, that T and Moo, it's their vibe. Like like meeting the owners of dispensaries and like the people working there. That social aspect was a lot of the love for me, more so than the weed itself. Weed and cannabis just happened to be the connector for that. Like I wouldn't really see myself. I think if without weed, me and Beer wouldn't talk. We're not like the same kind of people. But through cannabis and stuff, you get those social connections that it breaks down the barriers. So for me, a lot of the love for the Thai cannabis scene has been the socialness, the creative side, getting to see like the energy that's coming off the grow, the Ganjana cup, like Canis, like you can tell that they put their energy and what they love into what they're doing instead of it just being a shop front, like
Absolutely.
the energy around the cannabis and the people of it is just as important as the cannabis itself.
It's so important. You're absolutely right. You brought up Beer and the Ganjana guys, and those guys are so unique and they're so important for the history of, I guess, again, we talked about the resurrection of cannabis. Those guys are key in there. So, I mean, Sukhumvit itself is such a cool place to hang out, and it does have that artistic vibe to it.
Mm-hmm.
But beer comes from this place of 2 decades of underground growing, and then he goes into this legitimate growing when they legalized it for medicinal purposes, and he was part of that movement to start moving it there. And then now he's here. Now he's in Sukhumvit, and I think he mentioned at some point he may have some other aspirations, but to be part of that and to live it. So first to be able to sit in a dispensary like Sukhumvit and have him tell you the stories of those underground days, what it was like, and then how he made the transition alongside taking Thailand with him. Beer's transition was Thailand's transition into legalization. That's, we're living it. We're experiencing, we're witnessing it, and we get to be part of it. And, I get to write about it, which is really awesome. But this is something unique to Thailand right now, is that you have access to everybody. There's nobody who's out of reach. There's nobody who's too big to talk to. We're all kind of in this together. I think some people realize it more than others, but the reality is that's where we are. Guys from Ganjana, man, those guys, I mean, we talk about like Powerpuff, T-Rex, all of the Farmer and Canis, you got, well, and then you have Underground Grower. Man, those guys between them have, I know, upwards of 5, 6, 7 decades of experience. Of course, Canis brings down, if you're going to do an average, because Canis has only been growing for 4 years or less, he brings it down. But those guys have experiences also going back, like Beer, going back to like the pre-legalization days, and it's colored everything that they do. It's colored the way they think. It's colored the way they grow. I'll use the word perfected. They perfected their art. They wouldn't say perfected because they constantly are searching for a higher way to grow their cannabis and do what they have to do. But they came to this. They came to like their growing speciality while hiding from the cops. While looking over their shoulder, literally. While while I think Powerpuff told me a story about how he had to like sleep outdoors or sleep without walls to make sure that his grow was protected from the authorities. This added paranoia, legitimate paranoia, because people are coming after you. I mean, these guys learned how to do it on the run, and now they're kind of at peace, working, giving us our cannabis, growing it for us, but they've come from points of difficulty. And I mean, if you follow like Russian literature, it's like all great art comes from like this point of misery and fear. And I feel like a lot of like the great cannabis here in Thailand has come from like this point of creativity in a time of the war on drugs, and a time of looking over your shoulder because somebody's either going to rat you out to the cops, or the cops are actually coming after you.
Yeah. Canis was telling me, like, he said it's like I can finally breathe. Like, there's been all these years of like, I've got to think about this, got to change my clothes, got to change location, and now they could just breathe. Like, they can. I made this analogy like in the past, whereas imagine a musician that can never reveal their identity. They make such beautiful music that people adore and love, but they're not allowed to say that's my music because they'll get in trouble. That's how I view the whole how cannabis was before all this.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. So one of the things I asked Canis, what do you like the most, or what's the best thing about legalization? And he said it's the fact that I can meet my customers.
Yeah,
I can meet them and I can watch them smoke and I can see how they react. I can get feedback. And for years, for the couple years where he was growing when it was illegal, he said like he'd have to hide. He didn't want people to know who he was. He was scared. And maybe he would meet one customer a year after he kind of personally half stalked, half vetted them and decided that they were cool. I mean, the Ganjana Cup comes out of growers wanting to have this friendly competition where they can compare notes, they can try each other's grow, and they can learn from each other. And that's, this is because it was underground, because they were scared, and the only ones they could trust were themselves. So there is something. There's, when we talk about culture, Thai cannabis culture here, there's so many different angles to it, and there's so many different elements, but one really important element is that since the war on drugs until just a couple years ago, there was an element of fear that molded where we are today.
Yeah, and I think the struggle, like you said, the struggle has definitely made people kind of on the more path to perfection. I think if it was just an easy system of, well, we can just grow cannabis, what I'd like to see is what's going to come out of like the people who are now just getting into growing and the people who have been growing for years, what the difference of outcomes going to be, because the whole like pressure makes a diamond. So let's see what's going to happen with the people that haven't had this freedom, and I mean this freedom and stress like situation.
Yeah, I've started seeing a preview of that, and I would be lying if I said that their cannabis was bad or that it's pretty damn good. So I've noted. So I think notably, I've been lucky enough to try some of the cannabis grown by, I'd say, some folks who didn't have to worry, didn't have to look over their shoulder during the time where it was dangerous and illegal to grow weed. These guys, for different reasons, were able to kind of grow it with a bit of comfort, whether it was here or outside of Thailand, and they do things pretty well, and the product is good. For the most part, they come to the table with having some some American background to it, where they've come in and out of the university system in the United States, and they picked up growing there, and then were fortunate enough to be able to continue those practices here in Thailand. But still, after that, just last night I tried a grower who only has done 2 harvests since legalization, and I found that out only after I smoked it. I smoked his weed, and it blew my mind. It was excellent. It was really, really good. And I reached out to him and I said, is it true? Have you only been growing for 8 months? And he said, oh yeah, that was my second harvest you tried. So there's some good stuff happening, and new growers are picking up, and they've picked up some, I guess, best practices from other places. There's with these guys, and I know one of your favorite topics is land races and kind of like the traditional growing methods. These guys know nothing about it. These guys are all really like the new guys, or the guys without misery. Those guys are fully focused on replicating, I'd say, practices from outside of Thailand, and they, for the most part, never reference the pre-war on drugs culture here and the pre-war on drugs elements. And that might be where the big difference is with the guys who come from pain, the guys who come from looking over their shoulder, as all those guys are aware of the history. Mm-hmm. Those guys know they're attached to what was happening traditionally. Powerpuff was telling me about how his family, they used to do it. Like one of his relatives in his ancestral line was a traditional medicinal healer, and knew how to use the different parts of the plant, not for getting high, but for keeping people healthy. And so they have that history. If you talk to Beer will go on, and he's got a great background in Thai stick and what was happening when the GIs were in Thailand and before that. And he's attached to it. He knows it. If you go talk to the guys at Highland Cafe, they know it very well. They still celebrate it in their shop. And so there's kind of maybe it's a generational gap, but there's a historical it's maybe appreciation which is lacking. Oh, I don't know if it's lacking. It doesn't necessarily exist with these newer growers who are quality growers, but they have a different mindset for sure.
It's definitely going to be interesting as time goes by, seeing all these different people with different backgrounds and different influences, like how what's going to change in Thailand. I think as well, like I know you don't like using the word revolution, but I will a little bit, in the sense of, like, I think now we kind of have a playing ground for cannabis. A lot of different people from different backgrounds are all kind of coming together into this tropical kind of, in my opinion, a paradise of a country. And a lot of different mindsets, different backgrounds of knowledge are all going to intermingle together. And it's just going to go up, in my opinion. Like, it doesn't really matter the background of where people are coming from. A lot of people, pretty much everyone has something to bring to the table.
Yeah, so I agree with most of what you said. So I do think that Thailand is a paradise. So that's not very controversial. There is, I think I said it right. I think we're living through history right now. And I think in the future, 20, 30, 40 years from now, I think that this will be a time that people are writing about, they're discussing. There'll probably be some catchy name to capture the era. But I think this is an incredibly important part of the history of cannabis and the history of Thailand. And I think that, and this is something that I first started thinking about after I talked to Beer, who keeps coming up in our discussions now, was he said that Thailand now is going through something similar to what the U.S. was going through, and especially California in the late 60s. And this kind of change of thought, but also this accompaniment of culture and art and all the things that come around with it. And we do see it. I think music is becoming a bit more interesting, and hopefully will be more independent and less corporate and poppy, and less controlled by this idea of replicating whatever has been done last, or whatever has been done in Korea. I think that if you look at like the Sriracha Rockers, even you look at Young Gu, these guys are kind of following their own path. I think they're successful and people know them. But I think that there'll be more bands and there'll be more artists who feel comfortable to move forward and follow them, because there is now this environment of openness which exists. And I think there's of open discussions and ability to say things that maybe you'd think twice about. Maybe it wouldn't be polite in society. Maybe you've been educated that it's wrong, but now our dispensaries or these just social occasions where you sit around with your friends and smoke, or if you don't smoke and you just happen to be around there, you get the vibe. That's something that I learned at Highland. They were telling me that one of the reasons they set up their shop, and one of the favorite things about their shop was that people were coming there and hanging out even before cannabis was legal, and before they had cannabis for at least flower for sale. And they were doing that because they knew it was a safe spot to exchange ideas, a safe spot to develop those ideas and talk, and that people were meeting each other. So not only were people expressing themselves in a more comfortable manner, but they were able to meet like-minded people and build from that. And I think that's critical, and that's something that's so important here, is that cannabis is not unique to any social strata. It doesn't belong to high so, medium so, low so, whatever so. Like, this is something everybody loves, whether they admit it or not. And now more people are quite open about it. And you smell, if you're in a party or someplace and you smell it, you're going to go to it. I every morning I take my baby for a walk, and every once in a while, I'll smell it, and I'm not going to go smoke it, but I want to know who's smoking it, who they are, where it is, and that gets my attention. And I think that's just like the natural reaction of a good cannabis smoker. So you have these guys, and it doesn't matter what strata they're from, they're going to be pulled together, and they're going to smoke, they're going to enjoy each other, they're going to learn about each other. And some parts, I mean, I'm not like some pie in the sky utopian. I don't think that everybody's going to suddenly love each other, but there are parts of walls, like these walls of society do, at least if they don't fall down, they start to crumble a little bit, and people learn and people meet, and then they build, and I think we see that happening right now. I hope it continues, and I hope we protect that part of the community. So I hope this ability to mingle and mix and learn, I hope that that's protected, and that the dispensaries and shops and farms and whatever, all the spots, up in Chiang Mai, there was that wonderful cannabis cafe where they had the Thai High convention. Man, what a great location, and so many people can just hang out and naturally meet each other. That's critical, that's crucial, and that's something that I think Thailand, which has such a rich culture and such a rich history, can use to just build and become richer and create more from a cultural point of view. There'll be a new generation of music, architecture, art, food. I mean, well, I guess it's hard to top Thai food, but there's always something. There's always creativity.
That's the major factor for me. Like, a lot of people I've had since doing this like podcast, I'm not an outgoing person. I am not very sociable at all. But the podcast and going to Thailand, like, again, I wouldn't have imagined I'd ever meet someone like Beer, It's like we're in very much different spheres of the world. But then those walls just kind of crumble down thanks to cannabis. The social. I tell people I will talk to you and help you with the Thai cannabis scene, but you have to be about the culture. That's what comes first for me, is the culture, and not like the specific culture. It's the whole. It's like we're in a hot pot. We're all in a massive hot pot of different things being thrown in, and we're all just working together in this one thing. I've not really seen, like, in England, there's, with the cannabis stuff, because of the underground list, there is a lot of division and unhealthy competition. Whereas in Thailand, I've kind of only noticed pretty much healthy competition.
But so, yeah, there's a few things about what you just said that I thought about. Maybe I'll start with the end, with the healthy competition. But there's I think there's an appreciation from one part of the community of the importance of growers, of being sustainable, what they go through, and the prices, and I guess the process which is attached to high quality and good local cannabis. But then, of course, there is the imports, and we know that imports are not part of friendly competition. They're quite unfriendly, and they're not good for. I mean, they're good for the pocket of either the dispensary selling them, and maybe the customer, if the customer is not doesn't necessarily care about the quality. For the most part, it's just looking for cheap weed with a fancy name. But it's there, and it continues to be there, and it doesn't seem like it's going away. And it's not necessarily like when you talk about imports, and which are, I do not think, foster competition in Thailand right now. Imports are not being brought in by people who are ignorant of the Thai cannabis culture. I mean, these are people who know what's going on. They know what it means for the country, and they know how important it is for moving forward. So I think there's some folks that are involved with things that aren't helping anyone, and that's unfortunate. I think there's been less of it now than there has been earlier on. But it's there still, and they're coming up with various new ways to do it. I think the latest one is farm washing, because there's a requirement that shops are able to show an invoice from a farm where they source their cannabis. Now farms are the imported cannabis is going through farms. And those farms can issue those invoices, and as far as the dispensaries know, they're buying local, but it's not. They just bought it locally. It's not local. So that's something that's kind of like an ugly shadow, which is always there. I know I've had California weed sent to me, and people tell me that it's local, and I mean, that's unfortunate. I think nonetheless it's something that we'll be able to get over. I hope. The other thing you mentioned is, I guess, like, are you about the culture? And this is something I struggle with, is that not all growers, not all honest growers and honest shopkeepers and folks are about the culture. And I've had that. I've asked a few people, I've asked them, what do you think about the Thai cannabis culture? And these might be farmers, and these might be guys who are farming and selling, and they kind of look at me and they say, what do you mean? And I said, well, like the culture, like the history behind it, and the culture of music and art that's coming up around it, and things that I love and I get very excited about. And then they just kind of stare at me blankly, and I've had one guy actually say, well, what should I say? What should my answer be? And the reality is we can't all love it. I get fixated on it, and I think you and I kind of see eye to eye on it, that it's so important, it's so rich, that we want everybody to dance in it with us, but not everybody cares. And I think that's completely legitimate, but it's something I gotta admit, I get disappointed when I see that they they're doing what they got to do, and that's cool for them, but who cares about the history? They don't. It's something more, and maybe it's because of my age. So you're a youngin. It's just something that I really latch onto, but people don't have to latch onto it. They just have to be good and honest and do things the right way. They don't necessarily have to follow everything that I care about.
No, that's a very good way to put it. I think if I was to summarize kind of like what I want is just, to me, culture is important, but I understand that, again, like you said, not everyone is going to be about it. So to me, I guess the better word is, as long as people are transparent about why they're doing it and what they're doing, I understand it. As long as people aren't being something they're not, or trying to force themselves to fit into a piece of the puzzle. As long as there's that transparency of, well, yeah, I'm just selling weed. I just want to make some money selling weed. Okay, that's fine, Instead of some people that like to put an emphasis of like, well, I've been in this background for ages and stuff, and I don't really love the culture, and I'm like, but you know what I mean? I like that people can at least be honest with why they're doing it and what they're doing.
Absolutely, and I can't be disappointed. We can't be disappointed for their honesty, though I am. And it's it's their right. Someone once said to me, I said, I can't remember which shop it was, and I said, what message do you have for the readers? And then they said, if you don't want to smoke weed, don't smoke weed. And he said, that's you can't force anybody into it. And I think that's really that's a cannabis principle. You do do things voluntarily, do things because you want to, do things because you feel it's right. But man, you don't have to smoke, you don't have to use weed just because, like, nobody's gonna think you're cool because you smoke weed. Like, nobody, like, that's just not the way it is. Like,
yeah, that era is long gone.
I've never been part of that era, but like, it's just something, it's like a lifestyle thing. It's something that you come to and feel about. But the idea then that nothing should be forced. Nothing should be forced upon you within cannabis culture and within this like community. So where you come to, how you come to cannabis in Thailand, how you feel about it, all of that stuff, it's got to be natural, and it's got to be, like you said, transparent and real.
Definitely. So throughout like this journey of the 8 months now, what have been some of your highlights throughout all of this?
Man, there's been a lot of them. I'd say one of the highlights was going up to Chiang Mai in early December for that Thai High Festival. I mean, it was great to participate there, but it was even more interesting to kind of see a different angle and a different cannabis community and environment in Thailand. So I know the Bangkok community relatively well. I'm familiar with it. I feel at home in it. I still felt at home in it in Chiang Mai, but there was a different vibe, and being able to experience a completely different vibe in a city and in the locale, that was a highlight. So it showed. I mean, I talked about the diversity within the community and from personalities, but there's also, I'd say, there's something different up there. There's something more, I guess, relaxed. Chiang Mai is more relaxed than Bangkok is, for sure. But there was something different and fun in the air there. I liked the fact that there were so many of the growers that were directly involved in the sale of cannabis and being able to touch it. There's so much more outdoor cannabis grown up north that seems to stay up north than down here, and I loved it. So that was great, because prior to legalization, I was ordering and getting cannabis from all kinds of different sources. Some of the guys were up north, and then they disappeared upon legalization. I couldn't really find out where they went. But to rediscover some of that outdoor stuff, which doesn't exactly have, some of the stuff I tried didn't have the same strong odors that you would get from the indoor, but the tastes and the feelings were really excellent. And so that having that experience, a different Thai experience, was a highlight. Then I'd say another highlight, and maybe a general thing, is being able to be a part of what's going on. So we talked earlier, as you know, I tell this to everybody, and like especially the key players, like the growers, that everybody is part of history right now. We are part of history. We're living it. And to be able to chronicle it for High Thailand is like, it's phenomenal. It's something I love to do. It's almost like an excuse or permission to walk into somebody's bedroom and watch them change. And it's normal. Like, no, people are open to me. People tell me things. I've learned so much from folks who I don't know. I don't know how forthcoming they would be if I didn't have this, notebook with me and this ability to at least publish things on. So that probably is the greatest highlight, is that I had this intimate access to folks in the cannabis industry here in Thailand, and just their personalities, how amazing they are, like this understanding that I have, that there's nothing better. There's nothing cooler. I mean, there's stuff I won't share at all right now, but many of these guys I consider my friends, and we talk offline, and they confide in me and I confide in them back, and we're able to build on that. We can talk and learn. And again, this is part of that gift I've gotten from cannabis being legalized, and B, being able to partake in the culture.
It's definitely become a magical time in a way. The amount of kind of opportunity and creativity that's going on, and like going back to beer, I think beer nailed it pretty on the head. Like Thailand is going through its own kind of 60s style of just, it's like it's a green golden era that we've kind of, like the other day on Reddit, one thing that it just made me smile so much. There was a guy going around, an elderly, kind of your typical Thai uncle looking man, giving away free seeds, and like his packaging was just like, "Hello, I'm Mr. Nunchai. Here is free cannabis seeds. Please feel free to add me online." And I'm like, that's, even though it's so simple, just the adorable idea that like even the older generation as well are just open to talking about stuff. Like if I found out my granddad was walking around giving people cannabis seeds, I'd be like, what the fuck? What's he doing? Does Grandma know?
I have a hard time. I don't have a hard time imagining my grandfather going around giving cannabis seeds, and I equally don't have a hard time with my grandmother screaming at him and getting angry at him for doing that.
But no, I do love that the walls have kind of come down for a lot of people that you wouldn't even expect to care, and they even like the most normal looking person can have an interesting story about cannabis in Thailand. There's like, especially when I was in Sukhum Weed, and there was just, again, no offense to some of the people I spoke to, but very generic looking people, and then they're like, oh no, I've been growing for like 8 years, and like I get tied from the police, and I was like, but you look like a lovely old man. So I've loved finding out the stories and the backgrounds that like people are now very open to share, especially compared to 8 months ago.
Yeah, people are more open to share. I've definitely seen, because I married into a pretty, I'd say they're not conservative, but they come from a conservative segment of society. But I married into that, and I've seen their attitude come around, or at least that they feel a bit more comfortable putting their hair down and showing that this is not a very big deal. This is not well, maybe in the past it's been taboo to discuss. It really is. It's not an evil. This is not a bad thing. And I'm hoping that this becomes more prevalent, and that this is something that will be dominant in the future, and that there's this understanding that ganja is good, and ganja is used for good. And considering all the other ills in society here in Thailand right now, like meth, there's this is something which is a positive. This is not something which is negative. This is not something which hurts folks. So yeah, I see that. What I hope someone understands and moves forward with is that I hope that someone in power will understand that this is Thailand's true soft power. Like, this is the most positive thing in the world. So, cannabis itself is positive. The developments from a cultural point of view here in Thailand are positive. There is nothing bad. There's nothing bad from a behavioral point of view that happens when folks smoke weed here or use cannabis here in Thailand. People become friends. There's no fights. There's no human trafficking. You don't have abuse of other folks around you. This is a building thing, and people are looking towards Thailand with curiosity to see how we go with that. And if I were considering that in the past, there's been a campaign for soft power where they've focused on things like Mango Sticky Rice, sung by Millie, the famous young rapper.
Yep.
I think that they can get things which are a bit more powerful. If you think a rapper at Coachella eating mango sticky rice is soft power, let me tell you about cannabis and all it can do for your country and all it can do for everyone and to help promote you. I mean, Thailand eventually is going to be, or Thailand definitely has the potential to be the world's leader in cannabis. And that's something that's not a small thing. That's something we can all be proud of. And, let's get on the train now. Let's capitalize on it for Thailand's reputation as a way to promote the country within the world, and to show that this is, there are amazing things happening here in Thailand. There's amazing things happening with the culture and the art and the music scene. And there's amazing things happening in the cannabis world, and it's all linked to that.
Definitely. There's a lot of eyes at the moment watching Thailand to see how things unfold. I mean, not even just like localized. I mean, I know there's already some other Southeast Asian countries in talks regards to medicinal cannabis and such. but the whole world in a way is kind of looking over at Thailand. The amount of people I know who've changed their plans from going on holiday to like Spain, to Amsterdam, or to America, and are now going to Thailand is a lot. Like, a lot of people I know have now got this massive interest in Thailand, and I think it will be a big mistake if the government don't realize that to its full potential.
Absolutely. And I mean, you said that people were planning to go to Spain or Amsterdam. They were, I mean, I can't fathom the idea of traveling to, well, I would like to go to Spain for other purposes other than smoking cannabis. But the idea of traveling to another country right now for cannabis is just not at the top of my list. It's not something I would do. I would much rather go to any beach in Thailand. I'd much rather go back up north, like, in experience Thailand with cannabis than go to another country and have to deal with. Well, I don't mean that as to be condescending, but I prefer being here than going to other places just to get cannabis. Like, Thailand is so much richer in culture. There's so much more to offer than any of those other places. I used to go to California to see my great friends, and I wanted to try smoke weed legally. New York, it's just became legal, I guess, last year, but they only opened the bloody dispensary in December. And so everything you were getting there was already from California. But I digress. Like, there, we would travel. The destination was California, but only for weed. You come to Thailand, you've got, again, food, you've got amazing culture, you've got the history, you've got the scenery, the beaches, the mountains, the people. And it's I don't want to leave. I mean, again, it's an amazing place. Anybody who comes and tries this now, it's got everything. If they just clean up the pollution, it'll be perfect.
I couldn't agree with you more. It's, again, there's a reasons I'm wanting to leave terrible England to come live in Thailand, and cannabis was honestly the catalyst of being like, right, I'm finally doing this, because Thailand to me was home already before legalization, but now it's just like, oh, I don't need to worry. This country is a perfect place for a stoner. Like you said, the food, the people, the places, it adds to the experience of weed, and weed adds to the experience of Thailand. It's something that kind of is intermingled in a way that is, I don't think people, I mentioned this in a very earlier episode where I said Thai people are like the human embodiment of weed. Thai culture, the way it is, the creativity, the fluidity of humor, it's just, Thailand to me is a stoner's paradise.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. So I've never thought of it like that, but things which don't go in concert with cannabis, and Thai are not in concert with Thai culture. I mean, it's not something to rush. It's not something, you have to be patient. You have to understand there's a very human aspect to all of Thailand that there is to cannabis. There's connection. There's a depth. There's a depth to Thai culture, which I think is paralleled in cannabis culture. And it's my favorite place to be already, but there's no place else I'd prefer smoking up than here. We're waiting for you, Siddha.
I couldn't agree more, man, and don't worry, I am working on it. I am working on it. Bill bothers me every now and again, asking me little questions about visas. Well, I ask him about questions of visas and stuff, but don't worry, I eventually will be in the land of smiles.
All right. Waiting for you.
So, definitely, man. So, like, in regards to all this, what are you looking forward to for the future of it all? I mean, aside from me coming over, because I know you're excited for that. But Yeah, what are you excited for or looking forward to, or hoping for the future of cannabis in Thailand?
So I think my main focus and what I'm looking forward to is I don't want anybody to disturb the harmony of the industry, of the development. I'd like it to grow naturally. I'd like it to, I want it to, like we talked about that soft power angle earlier. I want it to be a point of pride. So I'm looking forward. I hope we have a Thai, a Thai politician, a Thai community leader, someone who becomes a champion, who can stand up and who people listen to, and is able to kind of make this mainstream. So I'd like to, and to that end, I don't know, Bill, do you speak Thai? I think you're much more fluent than me, right?
Yeah, me and Sita were just talking about this. I mean, I would say I'm not fluent, but every day I'm.
Do you follow the media here? Like
Yeah.
the local media. Okay, so that's one thing that I'm looking for right now is, and I guess in the future is I hope the Thai media, the Thai mainstream media, start opening their eyes and spotlighting some of the amazing, wonderful things that are happening here. So we know, we talked about this. We talked about like the positive vibes of being in a dispensary here. We talked about the culture and that feeling. Cannabis in Thailand, if you focus on that, if you focus on the human relationships, the development here, and like the people who are growing it here, that is just a pure positive story. It's a pure positive story that everybody can get around, read or watch on television and understand and feel good about. And for one reason or another, even though it's legal, even though it's becoming more mainstream, even though it's something that, it's not, people don't look twice when they see you walking with a bag of weed right now. When you're coming out of a dispensary, or, if you're wearing a shirt, I am wearing a cannabis shirt now. It's just part of the fabric of society. But yet we don't see in the local media discussions of it and explanations. And I think if we had this understanding, if we had that explanation, it would be a catalyst of what's already happening. And I think it would speed things up. Acceptance, it's already becoming more accepted. That would speed up the culture of people able to find each other and understand that there are these avenues for people to go to and to go down and to learn about each other and to build upon their ideas. More people would know about that. It would be, rather than a segment where maybe we all came to cannabis in our own ways, like at least the culture, this culture could be spotlighted or spotlit, and that would be so great. That would be so great to be part of that launching pad to make this a bigger thing in Thailand and for more people to understand. If we had champions in either politics or in media, I think that we would be heading in the right direction. Without that, looking towards the future, I think it's still going to be a grind. And it's still going to be folks like us on this podcast who are focusing on trying to move it forward. Folks like Beer, who's the closest to a champion right now, who does have some of that political background, who's trying to gain attention, and Kitty, Chopaka, and the guys from Highland. But like, I think there's more that needs to be spotlighted. I keep saying spotlighted, but probably is spotlit. But like, there's more that we need to discuss and needs to be brought out into the open. And that's what the future is going to depend on, is how quick. Because the less open it is, the less mainstream and status quo, and the less familiar we are with it, the easier it's going to be for the naysayers to come up with just more strange and bizarre stories. So it's been a while. It's been a while since I think the last crazy story was the 9-year-old kids who somehow were smoking a bong in patio without, and then that very, very, that very responsible gentleman who was walking down the beach came to scold them as they were sitting around without a lighter in that photo with their cannabis. Like more kind of like weird Facebook stories will pop up and will be spread around. Like the fact that most bizarre story like that, there's another one that these kids locked themselves in the lunchroom and the teacher told them to let her in, and they said, "No, we're smoking ganja. Get lost, bitch," or something like that. And that was picked up. That was picked up by the media. How could that's nonsense. Pick up some good stuff. Let's talk about things seriously. Let's talk about the good it can do for Thailand and for society and for the culture. And that's, if we have that, that future is going to be bright. If we don't have that, then we're going to have to take more of a defensive stance where we're always trying to like swat down these silly stories while at the same time with another hand trying to raise ourselves up. So I guess that's my maybe unsatisfying answer to what I look for in the future. Is it depends. It depends how status quo we can get. It depends on whether we have to be defensive or whether we can focus on being creative.
I'm going to jump in real quick. I've been on my little vape here. It's been a good conversation. One interesting thing about this is it's because you're kind of highlighting like the generational aspect of Thailand. Like,
yeah,
there's like the legacy media and say like TV news. It's kind of like tabloid news. It's like it's these sensationalist stories a lot of the time. And yeah, if you watch Thai news, it's a sensationalist, it's tabloid style.
Mm-hmm.
Versus where I think really the stories could be told the best are probably through social media, through like the younger generations or people who aren't tied to like legacy media in Thailand. And that's why I think like doing this podcast, doing what you're doing, Mendel, with your projects, and everyone involved in the cannabis scene, what they're doing on social media, whether it's creatively or through just showing like the culture aspects, that's where I think things can start to change. Because I think really social media has the most power in Thailand. At the end of the day, even though like we're beholden to laws, and everything that are created in the government, like at the end of the day, the social powers with social media is still in Thailand. And so like being able for people to create like this, like whatever it is that what I'm getting at is whatever it is that you do, like if you're part of the culture or if you're interested or if you want to, get involved, just start doing your own thing, whatever it is, and that it will have an impact. Like that's where the power is going to come from, is people doing like what they do, as opposed to relying on like these legacy news media, which it's I don't have much faith that that's going to happen, to be honest, in like Thai legacy media. I don't see that happening, but I do see it happening with like people doing their own thing. You know what I mean?
Absolutely. No, I think you're 100% correct. I think the data always shows that Thailand is one of the one of the most prolific users of social media. I think, I don't know what percentage of folks are on IG and Facebook, and I think they spend upwards of 13 hours on average per day or something absolutely ridiculous on social media.
Well, not just that, but as an example, like this happens all the time, because like I read a lot in like I read a lot of Thai media. Okay, so like for example, if you're like if something happens to you, like you're like a victim of like some scam, or like you get beat up by like a cop, or like something like bad happens and it's someone in like a position of authority or like more money, or like you don't have much recourse to take it to the police, people take it to social media, and they get recourse through social media now. And so it does have a lot of power, like you said, statistically, but just socially, like a lot of stuff happens through social media here. So, at the end of the day, like where you're coming from, I think is the right idea. Is like, there needs to be more positive representation, but I don't know if we can rely on like the legacy style as opposed to doing exactly what we're doing here, which is having conversations, whether it's entire English, because we have Thai listeners. So like we have Thai, Thai people listening to this show. They probably have their own conversations, from there. There's a very active, like Thai Facebook groups, for like growers and everything. I see on social media, whether it's on Twitter or Facebook or Instagram, just like you guys were talking about before, just like normal people enjoying cannabis, like people like that you wouldn't expect, just like normal looking people, enjoying cannabis, like that kind of stuff. I think is going to change the culture slowly. It will slowly change, and I think there's kind of a tipping point with like stuff in Thailand where, like once things, because like now, like legally, like you're not going to get arrested for carrying weed. There's some legal stuff, obviously, they need to settle with the laws and everything in terms of selling and whatnot. But at the end of the day, like no one's going to get arrested for carrying weed or if you're not smoking weed in like a place that's going to disturb people. So like over time, like culturally, I think it's going to be accepted. And in terms of positive representation, I would just encourage people to like take it upon themselves. Like if you're a musician, like be open about it. Like there's no reason to hide anymore.
Absolutely.
If you're, you know what I mean?
That's true. So I couldn't agree more with you. And I do. I mean, I'm happy. I'm embarrassed to say that my Thai is horrible after living here for so long. But I kind of watch over my wife's shoulder as when we watch media, a lot of it on YouTube rather than traditional, like you said, legacy media. But I hope it's quicker. I hope people step up. I hope people are more comfortable introducing it as part of something else. They can let them highlight food, music, another event, cultural event, but naturally keep it in the background if they naturally use it, as part as part of the status quo. And like what you said at the end of your comment, when you said, if you're a musician, you use it, just use it. And I think just use it, and those labels who are controlling their musicians and controlling every move, and those labels and those agents who basically own these actors and actresses here in Thailand, don't stop them. If they want to, this is the new Thailand. This is the new status quo. Let them be who they are. I think that part of getting into social media and letting people who are naturally using it already, and letting them feel comfortable to do it is, let's make it clear that there won't be blowback. There won't be repercussions. That this is something people can feel comfortable with.
100%. By the way, Mendel, as you guys were talking, I had a thought pop up in my head. Are you a fan of Anthony Bourdain?
Yeah, I am.
You kind of remind me of him a little bit. I don't know why. Just the way you articulate some of the stuff you were saying before, which I was kind of nodding my head as you were speaking earlier. There's something about the way you communicate that's like really clear, but also the comparison to Anthony Bourdain is like the culture aspect of kind of, because like through Anthony Bourdain kind of brought people together with food, right? Like it was he would go to different places around the world, connect with people. He came to Chiang Mai. He's come to Southeast Asia. He's went across the world. And people still reference like those episodes that he did when he was alive. Like, let's say the Chiang Mai one, like the cowboy hat lady at Chung Puk Gate, where you get the stewed pork leg and rice. It's like she's still there. Like you could go there tonight and find her wearing the cowboy hat, and it's just the same lady as on the show. But I bring up Anthony Bourdain because I think tying it back to the cultural stuff that we're talking about here, I think it would be awesome. I'm going to put this out publicly because this is where ideas get started. If down the line, whether it's tomorrow or next year or whenever, if you and us and whoever else gets involved does like sort of those type of explorations of Thailand, like Anthony Bourdain style explorations of Thailand, that like exploring Thailand, like food, like different places. Like there's so many beautiful natural places to explore in Thailand, so many cultural places, but also enjoy it in the context of cannabis. That could really be like one of those turning point things where it like opens up a lot of people to this kind of stuff. So just like those kind of creative projects, I think are going to make the big difference over time.
Yeah, that sounds amazing. I would love to be involved in something.
We need to get
an
investor. We need to get an investor. I know there's some rich
TV
I know there's some rich
Siam
people
Smoke
listening. I know there's some rich people listening right now. I know there is. Statistically, there has to be because we have enough listeners. There's got to be at least one.
All right. We can crowdsource it, right? Crowdfund it.
We could start a Kickstarter or get a wealthy investor. Either way, but something that's the kind of stuff that I'm thinking. Like right now, like we are just at the beginning, right? Like we are at the beginning. Like you guys were saying before. Like this is just starting. Like the stuff that's going to be happening over the next year, 5 years, 10 years. There's going to be films. There's going to be little documentaries. There's going to be little YouTube shows. There's going to be more podcasts. Like right now, we're the number one because like we're probably the only one, podcast of cannabis in Thailand. But like, there's going to be better ones that come. There's going to be like little like Anthony Bourdain style little documentaries that come up. Maybe you do it, Mendel. Because you have that communication style. I could totally see you going around Thailand, doing this kind of thing. That's where my mind starts to go. When we start talking about what's the possibilities for cannabis and like who's going to do it, it's like we're going to do it. Like it's going to be people like us, really, at the end of the day.
Yeah, absolutely. Sorry, you flattered me into silence.
That's my job on this podcast.
That's all Bill does.
Yeah, I think what an incredible comparison. I'm definitely going to make my sister listen to this because I think he's one of her heroes. But yeah, like that's in a way I feel like I'm doing some of that when I write, and that's what I do when I meet folks. Hooking up with more people like you guys and putting it out there, I think that would be such an amazing experience. I think it would be great to showcase Thailand. And you know who I think should sponsor it? It should be the TAT. I mean, this is, like we said, about soft power in Thailand and showing off what its strengths are. I mean, this clearly we can show cannabis, and then we can show food and culture and everything that goes hand in hand. And just some of the nicest and most interesting folks that you can meet here. But man, Bill, I think that's an amazing idea.
It's going to happen. It's going to happen whether we like it or not. Like I already see it happening. Sometimes I have a sense for this type of stuff. And like everyone listening, like you can mark my words. Like this is the kind of stuff that you're going to be seeing over the next, like whoever it is listening that's going to do it, whether it's us on this podcast right now or someone in the audience that's been just like thinking like, I want to get involved and do something, and like everything's happening so cool, and you're going to pick up a camera and start doing some videos, and then maybe the TAT does pick it up, which that's a whole other conversation, which is interesting, like whether that could happen or not, or what that would look like. But who knows, right? It's limitless possibility at this point. It's like we are just at the beginning. So
at the beginning.
Yeah, at the end of the day, this is just the beginning.
That's right. I mean, I got chills. Like, this is, something I think about all the time, is just how much we've done in such a small period of time, and how much more is in our future. I think, sky's the limit, and let's do it.
We start off as a tiny snowball and we're already becoming an avalanche. We're just going to keep rolling and getting bigger.
Well, I think that's a good way. I think that's a good way to end this show.
Definitely. So
on a really high note.
Very, very high note. So everyone, on this high note, stop being scared. If you have dreams in weed, if you're looking at the culture and the community and you want to be a part of it, you can be. I'm a loser and I'm talking to you right now and you care to listen. So suck it up, buttercup, and do what you want to do and be a part of this massive, beautiful thing. So
it's all. I mean, it's all like Mendel was saying. It's all love at the end of the day. I mean, everyone you're gonna find, you're gonna find characters in Thailand. If you spend any time in Thailand, like you're always gonna find characters. Like, but especially in the cannabis scene, right now in Thailand, like you're just gonna find love. Like if no matter who you're interacting with. So yeah, don't be scared from anybody. Just get involved, like do your own thing, whatever it is, and we'll all support each other. At the end of the day. So
absolutely.
Yeah, 100%.
I couldn't agree more.
Yeah. So with that, do you have any last words for the people, my brother?
I would say, assuming I'm your brother, I think Bill's your brother as well.
We're all family here.
We're all brothers. We're all cannabis brothers. No, I think actually my last words I think would be for you two gents. Like, man, I love your podcast. I think I told you guys that offline, but every week I listen to it, and you guys, like I said, you guys add more color to what I think about and what I deal with when I meet all the different characters in our industry. Just keep doing it. Like, you guys are an important part, giving voice to members of our community, giving your opinions, and sometimes changing my opinions. So, thanks a lot for having me on this. It was so much fun. It's so cool to talk about cannabis, and I love talking about it with people who appreciate it. So thank you.
That was our pleasure, Mendel. Yeah, and don't be shy. Definitely come back. I can guarantee. Yeah, I guarantee we'll have Mendel back. I think this was a good episode. So yeah, in the meantime, bye-bye.
Bye.
Cheers.